Coming up on Global Business, peace appeal. Chinese President Xi Jinping calls for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Palestine conflict during a video conference with leaders of the BRICS nations on Tuesday. Stronger bonds, 2 years since China and ASEAN elevated ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. We'll take a closer look at what this has meant for the region's trade and economy. And Autonomous Leader will explore how China is poised to become the world's largest market for self-driving cars. And welcome everyone to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. First up, at the invitation of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Chinese President Xi Jinping attended the BRICS Extraordinary Virtual Summit on the Palestinian-Israeli issue and elaborated on China's position on the issue here in Beijing. Our Liu Jiaxin has the latest.
The escalating situation in Gaza has brought leaders of the BRICS countries together, seeking ways to ease the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Chinese President Xi Jinping attended the virtual summit and elaborated on China's position.
Given the current circumstances, it is very timely and very important that we meet and speak up for justice and for peace on the Palestinian-Israeli issue.
President Xi called on the parties to the conflict to end hostilities and achieve a ceasefire immediately. President Xi said humanitarian corridors must be kept secure and unimpeded, and more humanitarian assistance should be provided to the population in Gaza. He also emphasized that the only viable way to break the cycle of Palestinian-Israeli conflict lies in the two-state solution.
This indicates that China is very serious about working towards ceasefire immediately to save more lives and also to do its best to strive for a long-term, lasting solution.
It was the first summit since the expansion of BRICS. The 15th BRICS leaders meeting held in August this year made a political decision on membership expansion and formally invited Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, Ethiopia, and Argentina to become official BRICS members from January 1st, 2024. These new member countries also attended the summit on Tuesday.
BRICS represents a very important political force in the world. I think overall it represents the mostly developing countries. Keep fighting will have implications for world economy, for commodity prices, and the developing countries. So I think that's why it's very important. Other than, the obvious humanitarian reason.
At this summit, both the BRICS countries and the new member states generally held similar positions. They called for a ceasefire, the protection of civilians, and humanitarian relief.
Chinese President Xi Jinping not only delivered a speech and explained China's positions, but also demonstrated China's image as a responsible major country upholding international fairness and justice. He also called on all parties to build consensus to the greatest extent possible and unify their voices to promote the de-escalation of conflicts and the restoration of peace. Liu Jiaxin, CGTN, Beijing.
Meanwhile, the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, warned on Tuesday that the oil market is on edge over the latest crisis in the Middle East. Birol said market prices have not yet been affected, but if one or more of the oil-producing countries in the region is directly involved in the conflict, it will have an impact. The World Bank's Commodity Markets Outlook report earlier noted that oil prices have risen by about 6% since the start of the conflict. It also noted that if the conflict escalates, policymakers in developing countries will need to take steps to manage a potential increase in headline inflation. The World Bank's chief economist, Indermit Gill, said the global economy would face a dual energy shock for the first time in decades from both the conflict in Ukraine and the war in the Middle East. He added many potential price hikes will depend on what happens to world oil prices and exports. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with Uruguayan President Luis Alberto Lacalle Pou in Beijing today. The two heads of state announced the elevation of bilateral relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. President Xi said over the past 35 years, China and Uruguay have adhered to mutual respect and cooperation. He noted there's been with flourishing exchanges between both sides, in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic, where the two countries helped each other and worked together to fight the pandemic. President Xi said a deepening of bilateral ties is increasingly becoming the consensus for both countries. Meanwhile, President Lacalle said Uruguay will actively support the Belt and Road Initiative and welcome more Chinese companies to invest in Uruguay. This year marks the 35th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and Uruguay and the 5th anniversary of Uruguay joining the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, today also marks the 2-year anniversary of the establishment of the China-ASEAN Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, which aims to advance cooperation in all fields. Robust trade relations stand out. Now, in the past year alone, the volume of two-way trade between China and the 10 ASEAN countries surpassed 6.5 trillion yuan, representing a 15% increase on a yearly basis. Now, that cements the status of China and ASEAN as each other's largest trading partners. Now, China has held a position as ASEAN's top trading partner for 14 consecutive years, while ASEAN has been China's largest for the past 3 years. Well, international cargo routes between China's southern island province of Hainan and Singapore have seen a steady increase in recent years. With the official implementation of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or RCEP, in the issuance of the Hainan Free Trade Port policies, cooperation in trade and investment has continued to deepen. Our Lin Wo reports from Hainan.
Yangpu Port is at the intersection of the new international land-sea trade corridor in western China and the 21st century maritime Silk Road. Since the COSCO Shipping Hainan-ASEAN-Singapore liner route was launched at the end of 2018, Yangpu Port has become one of the important channels for economic and trade exchanges between Hainan and the ASEAN countries.
After opening direct liner routes to Singapore, especially in recent years when shipping voyages have greatly increased, companies have more choices to reduce transportation costs in production.
So far, Yangpu has opened a total of 45 container liner routes, including 22 for domestic trade and 23 for foreign trade. Hainan has opened 6 container liner routes to Singapore in a network that extends to the whole ASEAN region, the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean, as well as with West Africa and South America.
In the first 10 months of this year, the import and export value between Hainan and Singapore reached nearly 1.4 billion yuan, with import and export of 490 million yuan and 900 million yuan respectively.
In recent years, thanks to route resource advantages, transportation facilitation, and tax incentives, Yangpu Port has continuously attracted foreign enterprises and ships.
We aim to make contributions to promote the construction of the Hainan Free Trade Port and the national development paradigm of dual circulation by leveraging the industry experiences of CWT Group, the market advantages of Hong Kong, and the policy and resource advantages of the Free Trade Port, as well as deepening economic and trade exchanges among the different regions.
Lin Guangming, an overseas Chinese with Singaporean citizenship, came to Hainan in 2020 as a highly skilled worker from overseas and became the chief planner for the Yangpu Economic Development Zone Management Committee. Having engaged in urban planning for many years, he's trying to combine Singapore's ideas with local characteristics in planning for Yangpu.
I want to play the role of a bridge between Singapore and Hainan and create a city oriented towards both the world and the future by combining the advantages and realities of Hainan, especially the Circum-Xinyunwei region in Danzhou.
With the introduction of highly skilled workers, the increasing shipping routes, and close interaction among enterprises, exchanges and economic cooperation between Hainan and Singapore will be further strengthened. Lin Wo, Sansha Satellite TV in Hainan for CGTN.
And for more on the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and ASEAN, I want to bring in Li Yong, Chief Researcher at globalization-focused DNC think tank. Mr. Li, always a pleasure to have you on the program. So beyond the notable rise, Mr. Li, in trade value and trade volume, what additional accomplishments have emerged in the 2 years following the elevation of China and ASEAN's ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership?
Well, I really wanted to use the word trust as an acronym, and you talking about trade, I'm going to talk about the rest of the four. okay, are for regional connectivity. Last 2 years there are quite a number of regional connectivity projects that have been put into place, and that has become a future direction of cooperation. The second one is unchecked flow of investment, and over the last 2 years, I think investment still increases. And by July this year, I think the bilateral investment has reached cumulatively 380 billion US dollars, and that is huge. And I think that is going to be increased in the future. And the third one is the supply chain cooperation. And when we talk about it, there's not just a kind of a supply chain cooperation, but also a lot of synergetic cooperation and a kind of a win-win type of cooperation. And the last one, I think, is the Trade Plus effort. Apart from the effort to promote free trade, the trade under the framework of RCEP and so on, the two sides are really seriously talking about the elevation of the current trade arrangement to the so-called version 3.0. So those are basically the additional complements. Of course, there are a lot more.
Yeah, we'll talk about the version 3.0 of the free trade area in just a second, Mr. Li. A very creative acronym, TRUST, to describe China-ASEAN relations. I love it. So we were just reporting on China's tropical island province of Hainan and its shipping routes to ASEAN. The entire island province is, of course, designated as a free trade port. So how can businesses that want to tap into ASEAN's dynamic markets really leverage Hainan's unique strategic location as well as policy incentives through the free trade port, through RCEP, the world's largest free trade agreement, and the China-ASEAN free trade area to really capitalize on growth opportunities in Southeast Asia?
Well, still, I think there are a lot of policy advantages. The environment is already there. There are the advantages of geographical distance, and there are already infrastructure being built, benefiting trade flows between the island and the ASEAN countries. And going forward, there are many new policies, being staged, as a part of the launch of the island as the free trade port. One of the important attraction, I think, is the design to attract companies to set up the so-called regional headquarters. And that, I think, is going to be an important part of the island's policy to develop the so-called ABP economy, that is called the Advanced Business Park economy. And that, I think, accompanied with that, there will be a lot of preferential policies, like treating those regional headquarters as part of the Hainan, and treating the executives coming in and out of the island, or as a kind of being effective stay in Hainan. And most important of all, all of them will enjoy preferential income tax of about 15%. And the second one, I think, is very significant, which is the unilateral opening of the island in many areas, including the ocean oil and gas development, seafood processing and transit, and this is quite significant. And the seafood, for example, imported from ASEAN countries, can be shipped to the island and processed with a value added about 30%, and then released to be shipped to the mainland duty free. and that I think is quite significant. There are other unilateral opening like the service area. That is going to be in line with the CPTPP, and interestingly, China-EU comprehensive agreement on investment. That I think will bring about a lot of opportunities for businesses who wish to capitalize on the opportunities. And of course, there are many others. I just mentioned two. One is the convenience and the connection with the most developed province of Guangdong, and more importantly, in terms of financial services, the island is going to be, closely connected with with Hong Kong. That I think, there will be a kind of a mutual reinforcement of each of their positions, and to provide the highest quality financial services. And of course, there are a lot other more, but I'm going to really stop here. Back to you.
Yeah, a lot of preferential policies for Hainan indeed. I want to stick with trade, Mr. Li, because a key component of the action plan between China and ASEAN in terms of how the two sides actually advance their comprehensive strategic partnership is to further enhance the China-ASEAN free trade area. So China has proposed that negotiations on a version 3.0 of this free trade area to be concluded by next year. So what will version 3 of this free trade area do you think mean for the region's development and growth prospects?
Well, I think this is really a good question, because this this version 3.0 is not really a kind of a continuance of liberalized trade, but also is going to address the future trend, which is digital development. So this new version of trade agreement is going to cover that area, and then I will provide opportunities for the Chinese companies and the ASEAN companies to work together, to exploit digital opportunities and face up the digital challenges. And the second, I think that is very important. That is the green development. Green development is very important, particularly in the context of the climate change, to fight against climate change. And in the future, I think apart from the traditional cooperation in supply chains, I think there will be more content of green development. And China obviously have quite a lot of advantages and experiences that can be shared with the ASEAN countries, and that will also improve the quality of development in ASEAN countries, particularly in the aspect of green and renewable development. And of course, that will also change the nature of the future supply chain cooperation. Back to you.
Okay, so digital and green, two new areas we can look forward to in version 3.0 of the China-ASEAN Free Trade Area. Mr. Li, a pleasure as always. Li Yong, Chief Researcher at DNC Think Tank. Thank you, Mr. Li. Well, China's top financial regulators are calling for more financial support for innovation-driven development. Officials from the central bank, the General Administration of Financial Regulation, and the China Securities Regulatory Commission met with the Ministry of Science and Technology to discuss the issue. Regulators are calling for the creation of a multi-layered financial service system to support scientific innovation, including loans, bonds, stocks, insurance, venture capital, and financing guarantees. To U.S. monetary policy, where the U.S. Federal Reserve said it will proceed cautiously when making future decisions regarding interest rates. Now, during their most recent policy meeting on Tuesday, participants agreed that if incoming information suggests that progress towards the Fed's inflation goal is inadequate, further tightening of monetary policy would be appropriate. The Fed has not explicitly stated that it has finished combating rapid price increases. The focus of discussions has now shifted towards determining how long to maintain the policy rate within the current range of 5.25% to 5.5%. Well, Argentine President-elect Javier Milei said he would ditch the country's battered currency, the peso, for the U.S. dollar during his presidential campaign. But will his plan revive an economy that has long been haunted by hyperinflation? Take a look.
Milei's bold proposal to ditch the peso for the greenback is in the name of curbing rampant inflation. The far-right outsider is hoping to rein in inflation that has hit 140%. Argentina is struggling with a deep economic crisis, with most residents mired in wild financial instability. And dollarization is seen by some as a salvation.
I come from an age in which I saw convertibility. To me, they were 10 years of economic peace, which allowed us to plan, develop, work. You earned your salary, it was profitable. You could go to the supermarkets and fill up the trolley. You could save and you could buy an apartment. I really miss that time. I wish we could do something to come back to that situation in which workers progressed.
But not all agree on the plan's effectiveness. Some fear the dollarization may come at a price of lower salaries and a loss of monetary autonomy.
When I studied what happened in other countries after adopting the dollar, they never recovered the previous salary level. Then dollarization is carried out at the expense of Argentines' pockets. And it's worth saying it. We haven't gone through a party since 2015. Then, today's salaries are in critical situation for most of society. Cutting salaries for dollarizing would be very traumatizing in socioeconomic terms.
I think dollarization is not good, because getting linked to another country's currency is not positive as it takes autonomy.
Despite doubts and fears, dollarization is not new to the South America continent. In 2000, Ecuador, which faced similar economic difficulties as Argentina faces today, adopted the US dollar. 2 decades later, the measure seems to have worked out.
Dollarization for me was the salvation of the economy. Before dollarization, our situation was similar to what Argentina is going through with the peso. The sucre was constantly devalued, and dollarization saved us.
However, dollarization is not a one solution to all. The IMF director for the Western Hemisphere, Rodrigo Valdez, said that dollarization would not be enough to fix Argentina's financial woes because it cannot be a substitute for a sound economic policy. He also said dollarization needs large dollar reserves, which is not the case of any Latin American country.
Well, fresh numbers from the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers showed that new energy vehicle sales in China took up more than 1/3 of the market share during the first 10 months of the year. The booming NEV market has brought new business prospects for foreign suppliers. Zhang Shixuan explains.
17 cars on the track at the Shanghai F1 International Circuit. It's not a race, but a demonstration of cutting-edge technologies in e-mobility, automated driving, vehicle motion control, and integrated safety systems.
Here, I'm testing more than a dozen new energy vehicles, getting a peek at the latest functions and configurations drivers are after, and what the competition is like. You can see I'm driving right at the center of the lane without much control on the steering wheel. We can also adjust the speed here. Now it got faster.
When it comes to an intersection, the car will exit automatic driving mode.
I'm about to park my car, maybe one of the toughest tasks for many beginners, but this system has made it all easier for you. All I need to do is pick my ideal parking lot, and let's start. And let's see how long it takes. It takes just 40 seconds.
And while this may seem just a minor upgrade of existing parking assist technology, there's something more exciting on the wheels.
Usually we should have a very large space for a U-turn, but thanks to its flexible wheels, it's turning in a smaller circle. It doesn't take much space here.
The secret is a system which allows the wheels to rotate, allowing the car to move sideways or even turn on the spot.
For example, when the car is extremely close to the wall, and the driver wants to get the car out, if only the front wheels can steer, the car will yaw, which may cause scratches on the car. But with the crab walk, the front and rear wheels can coordinate with each other and quickly get the car away from the wall, avoiding scratches.
All new applications were developed by the German auto parts supplier ZF, but many of the models are made by Chinese automakers.
The speed of electrification and the adaptation of electrified products is nowhere faster than here in China. We've got to be really fast, or try at least not to develop products, for example, in Germany, and then try and implement it in the Chinese market. We would most probably fail because we wouldn't be quick enough. So what we do now is a lot of the new technologies are developed locally here in China. Our local teams understand our local Chinese customers, and that enables us to adapt to the market at the right speed, and that enables us to transform at market speed. Some of the technologies today are technologies that we're implementing first in China. We're going to industrialize them first in China, and then we're going to bring them out into the world.
Just last week, the company staged the global debut of its purely electromechanical braking system in China. It helps shorten the braking distance by up to 9 meters when the car is traveling at 100 kilometers per hour. ZF Group has been in the auto parts industry for a century, and the German firm is now shifting heavily towards electrification. Combustion engine-related parts already account for less than a third of the company's business. And China, as the world's largest EV market, remains as a strategic market for ZF and many other foreign companies as well.
The market is already in full competition, but we have to acknowledge also that the market will be even more witness more fierce competition in the next 2 years, because there will be even newcomers. More and more important is the intelligence of the vehicle, whether they have the autonomous driving functions, whether they can facilitate the driving experience of the customer. That's getting more and more important in the next 2 years.
It is expected that more than 9 million units of NEVs will be sold this year in China, making it clear just why foreign firms are so focused on their business here. Zhang Shixuan, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
And China's autonomous driving industry is on track to become the world's largest market for self-driving vehicles by 2030, with revenue from these vehicles and related mobility services projected to exceed $500 billion. That's according to a report by management consulting firm McKinsey. Recent data from China's industry ministry indicates that over 40% of new cars sold in China now come equipped with autonomous driving systems. The Chinese autonomous driving market is poised for further expansion with substantial capital inflows. According to market research firm PitchBook, Chinese autonomous vehicle companies have now secured approximately 60% of global venture capital investment since the beginning of 2022, surpassing investments in U.S. companies. And that's going to do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.
This is CGTN,
China Global Television Network.